Hey everyone, Jack here, soldier on the path yet again, and chiming in today on day 4 of our Consecration of St. Joseph. I recorded a video a bit earlier, and unfortunately it got corrupted, and so maybe I'll record that or upload that again in the future. But at any rate, we're just going to kind of pick up where we left off on just the topic of discussion today, all around kind of what I've been talking about in the past with the St. Joseph consecration, around just what it is to be a man, and how it can be kind of confusing in this day and age of really what it does mean to be a man, and kind of like the materialistic things around being a high value man, like the common tropes of, 6 foot tall, 6 figure salary, pack abs, all of these things being materialist, and also kind of shallow in not taking into consideration your inner spirit. And the few things I guess that we will cover today on that are just kind of like reflections on what it means to fall into more kind of materialist thinking, and how to really bring ourselves back to our spirituality and our inner growth, and not to get kind of too caught up in a lot of that. So there's a line in here that I thought was kind of helpful to articulate that on old day 4 here. And let's see if I can find this here. It all has to do with the anthropomorphic side of Joseph. Well, at any rate, here we go. At any rate, the kind of point to this of like why Saint Joseph is such a cool guy to kind of consider with a lot of this stuff is like, obviously there's the Holy Father in heaven. That's like the ultimate spiritual thing to tap into. Saint Joseph is a great example of what like a mortal human person to pray to, because he ultimately was a man on earth. He had to protect Jesus and Mary. He was the foundation of their earthly family. And so a lot of the things that St. Joseph goes through are the exact same things that we go through as men and just human beings. Things like having to provide for our family, things like having to work hard, things like having to sacrifice, and things like that. So anyway, here is the line. He is our guardian, loving protector, and fearless defender. He is the model of saintly fatherhood. After Christ, St. Joseph is the model of heroic manhood, defender of marriage, chastity, and life itself. Consecration to St. Joseph is key to overcoming the anthropological confusion so prevalent in our times. I'm going to read that again because I think that's the most important kind of topic on this. Consecration to St. Joseph is the key to overcoming the anthropological confusion so prevalent of our times. And I think that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of confusion going on right now of what it means to really be a man. The anthropological, the flesh, the human being, anthropology, study of human beings, there's a lot of confusion of that, of what that really means. And a lot of it is overly materialistic and not more focused on the spiritual foundations of what it means to be a man, and more focused on the materialistic sides of being a man. So if you were to ask just like a general person on the street, what does it mean to be a man? Well, it means to be, rich and successful and powerful and strong and good looking and X, Y, and Z. Maybe that's not necessarily what some people would admit, but that's kind of what is sold to men. I mean, like even like hair, like I buzz my hair, I'm like lose my hair like a little bit, whatever, it's fine. But like man who's like having a full head of hair, so you're taking all these, you're going to Turkey, and so the point is, all of that is shallow, and it's actually not productive for what it really does mean to be a man, because at the end of the day, all of that can be taken from you. Really, inside is what you need to be investing into growing your spiritual side of what it means to be a man, being an honest man, being a righteous man, being strong in spirit and physically. Like, it is important to be physically strong and to take care of your body, but that is the outcome of what happens when you just live a disciplined and healthy lifestyle. So eating well, exercising, all for the sake of being a good example for the people around you. So the other kind of like topic, I guess, of why this is so important is because this your spirituality, your inner soul and body, that's really what people are ultimately looking for. And there's just cheap ways of kind of trying to get about that by, you know, getting overly materialistic into things. And this kind of also goes into like, and I've watched a recent video on this with Vigor Warriors 2, great guy. I'll link him in the description too. All about worshiping false idols, and those idols can be things not necessarily like you're worshiping like the golden cow like it's in the Bible, but like this can be things like worshiping like your sports team, or worshiping your job or power or title, or like worshiping women in like kind of lustful ways, worshiping your bank account and how much money you have in that, or your things that you have there. These are all like materialistic things that ultimately are kind of distracting you from focusing your time and attention on God. Now, I think there's a balance with this. It's just in like the modern world that we have to, that I'm still kind of like working on myself, in the sense of, you know, I love a family one day. I want to, you know, have a wife and kids to take care of one day too. So you need to be disciplined and work hard, just like Joseph did, to support the family. Like, although Joseph is this great, holy, masculine figure, he wasn't just praying all day. You know, like he was a carpenter. Like he was still paying the bills. He was putting a roof over their head. He was getting them food. Between, you know, the ages of 0 and 33, Joseph was the guy taking care of business. So that's why he's such a great example for us as men, and just people in general, to still maintain the discipline of what it means to really focus on your manhood. Joseph is not this figure that is, you know, he's not like kind of like Samson in the Bible, where he's, you know, this strong, ripped guy. Like we actually, I mean, I don't really know much about St. Joseph. I'm learning a lot about him through this consecration. But what we do know about him, we know he was calm and stoic and holy guy that God entrusted him with. So that actually reminds me of another kind of cool passage that I read on this day, 4th of the consecration, and that St. Joseph, his role is to lead everyone to Jesus, just as Mary does. Mary was predestined to be the Immaculate Mother of the Savior. Mary, you know, she was destined to be, God picked her and made her for a reason. St. Joseph was predestined to be the earthly father and Savior of the Savior, and your spiritual father. Your spiritual father has been given all of the graces necessary to complete his mission, a mission that includes increasing your relationship with Jesus. Now, I think this is a really profound statement. Your spiritual father, Joseph, has been given all of the graces from God necessary to complete his mission, a mission that includes increasing your relationship with Jesus. So, what does this say? This is that Joseph was created by God with all of the necessary graces in order to complete the mission of being this saintly guy. This is the cool part, in the sense of we are the same way. That's why St. Joseph is such a cool guy, in the sense of he is as close to us as we can possibly be. Like he's a regular guy. So the point that I'm trying to get at is we also are given these graces by God. We also, inside of us, are equipped already with everything that we need to do in order to complete whatever mission God put us on this earth to do. That's also kind of like why I have the name of this channel, Soldier on the Path. Soldiers complete the mission. They have a mission, and they go and they execute on that mission. Now, what is that mission? Whew, that's a whole nother barrel of monkeys. And I actually, I don't even really necessarily know my mission right now. I'm still searching for that. I'm praying to God to help illuminate that to me. Illuminate to me what's already in me. Like, it's already in there. It just needs to be discovered. And all of the correct nuts and bolts in order to accomplish that mission exist in me, exist in you already. You just have to exercise that self-discovery in order to find it. So that's kind of another really cool topic of this particular video that I think is worth reflecting on, that God has put into you already all of the necessary graces in order to complete your mission or missions. Maybe we have more than one. We probably do have more than one mission. They all go to the same place though. So whatever that mission may be, it's already in you. It's just a matter of discovering it. So that's another reason why I started this channel, as a kind of means of self-discovery, but also hopefully to encourage you all to reflect on yourself of what is that mission that I'm set by God to complete. And that's also like really exciting, because that is reassuring to you that your life has that necessary meaning to it, and that just the fact that you exist in the first place and that you woke up today is unequivocal proof that the mission's not complete. And if there's a mission to complete, there's a mission. So even if you're not necessarily sure what that is right now, all the more reason to pray to God for it. Now, this is also like what gets really interesting with it. This is just kind of upon my personal self-reflection. In ways that you distract yourself, in ways that you get too materialistic, in ways that you go kind of shy away from God, and in bad things that you know that you shouldn't be doing. So this is drinking, this is like excessive, like focus on women, or just like kind of unchaste practices in the first place. This can be excessive focus on money. This can be excessive focus on any given vice or focus that's not spiritually aligned. I can speak from experience. All that's doing is just delaying that discovery of that mission. So this is why it's important to be disciplined and to try to renounce those temptations as much as possible, because by renouncing those temptations that are ultimately materialistic and kind of not spiritually aligned, you're just delaying that discovery for yourself of what that true core mission can be. So you have to remove all of that noise, all that external noise, in order to reveal the internal mission that exists in all of us. And again, it's so cool in the sense of it's all already in there. Like we have to do things, but we don't have to do things. It's kind of like paradoxical, I suppose, in the sense of, but the cool part is, once you renounce those bad habits, better habits are just going to naturally kind of take those place. So the point being here, St. Joseph is a very inspiring character in the sense that he's just a regular, degular guy that was predestined, selected by God to complete the mission of being Jesus's earthly father and making sure that Jesus didn't starve before he went out to do his ultimate ministry. And I think that's pretty cool. So anyways, I think that's kind of a good musing of the discussion today that you can reflect on with yourself. So we'll wrap up with just reading through the day 4 of the St. Joseph consecration. If you're just kind of around for more of like the spiritual, semi-Catholic, semi-secular perspectives of this, feel free to just leave me a like and take a hike. You know what I mean? Like you can, but if you want to stick around for the actual consecration reading, I'm going to get into that right now. So we're going to go back to day 4. So day 4, God the Son, Redeemer of the world, have mercy on us. So this first line comes from St. Alphonsus Liguori. The holy example of Jesus Christ, who while upon earth honored St. Joseph so highly, and he was obedient to him during his life, should be sufficient to inflame the hearts of all with devotion to the saint. So this is basically just saying like Saint Joseph was such a good example to Jesus as like an earthly father. That should be reason enough that we're really stoked on Saint Joseph, because Jesus loved him and Jesus learned a lot from him, and Jesus was obedient to Joseph. So this is, I guess, another thing for us to like be obedient to our fathers and our spiritual fathers too. So now we're getting into the just main text. Are you familiar with the phrase, "to Jesus through Mary"? It's a wonderful expression of devotion coined in the early 18th century by St. Louis de Montfort. In his book, True Devotion to Mary, St. Louis taught that Mary is the surest, easiest, and fastest way of going to Jesus. To instill this message in people's hearts, St. Louis fervently promoted the Rosary and Marian consecration. What is interesting, though, and that all of St. Louis's writings, he only mentions St. Joseph a few times. Why is that? Didn't he love St. Joseph? Oh yes, St. Louis de Montfort loved St. Joseph very much. Every saint loves St. Joseph. The reason he didn't offer any significant teaching on St. Joseph is because the church had not yet developed a theology of St. Joseph. Interesting. An understanding of the greatness of St. Joseph did not begin to flourish in the devotional life of the church until the mid-19th century, 100 years after St. Louis de Montfort lived. Were St. Louis de Montfort preaching on the streets of France today, he would most likely be heard extolling the wonders of St. Joseph. He might even add to St. Joseph his famous phrase to say, "to Jesus through Mary and Joseph." Jesus wants you to know and love his mother and his father. Again, very cool. So now this is from the Venerable St. Francis Xavier Wynne Van Thuan. Mary and Joseph form the most faithful image of Jesus, and for this reason I can formulate the shortest path to his holiness. For me, to live is Jesus, it is to Mary and Joseph. The two greatest saints in Christianity are Mary and St. Joseph. Consecration to St. Joseph flows naturally from baptismal consecration to Jesus Christ and filial consecration to Mary. Indeed, consecration to St. Joseph, your spiritual father, allows you to be consecrated to each person of the Holy Family. In our day, marriage and family are under attack. So it's 2025. It's July 2025 right now. Jesus and Mary want you to be consecrated to St. Joseph because there is no father or husband who knows more about the sacredness of marriage and the family, or the self-sacrifice love required of fathers and husbands, than St. Joseph. His paternal mission continues from heaven. Very cool. He is our guardian, our loving protector, and fearless defender. He is the model of saintly fatherhood. After Christ, St. Joseph is the model of heroic manhood and the defender of marriage, chastity, and life itself. Consecration to St. Joseph is the key to overcoming the anthropological confusion so prevalent in our times. Kind of what I mentioned earlier, like it's confusing to be a man. It's confusing to be a woman too, but I'm a guy, so I'm keeping it in the guy perspective. Under the watchful, steadfast love and care of St. Joseph, all ideologies and idols will crumble and fall before Jesus Christ. This is kind of what I talked about earlier. We got to be careful about worshiping false idols. We lean on St. Joseph. He can help us with that. So this is from Blessed Joarius Maria Sarnelli. How thou, St. Joseph, didst rejoice to have always near you God himself, and see these idols of Egyptians fall prostrate to the ground before him. Consecration to St. Joseph will increase your love for Jesus. The entire mission of St. Joseph, it points to Jesus. St. Joseph never points to himself. Humility, very humble guy. His role is to lead everyone to Jesus, just as Mary does. Mary was predestined to be the Immaculate Mother of the Savior. St. Joseph was predestined to the early father of the Savior, your spiritual father. Your spiritual father has been given all the graces necessary to complete his mission, a mission that includes increasing your relationship to Jesus. So this is from St. Hilary of Poitiers. Joseph carries Jesus Christ first to Egypt, then to Judea, and so traced for us the path of the apostles who preached his name to the Jews and Gentiles. So again, like Joseph is the one lugging Jesus around everywhere when he's a kid. So like not an easy job, especially in the desert. So props Joseph. Saint Joseph was the guardian of Jesus and Mary. He was naturally also the one who introduced those souls, eager to approach them more closely. So that's also kind of another thing to consider in the sense of Joseph was the kind of bouncer to Jesus. A lot of people wanted to see him that understood what was going on, so Joseph had to be the one to kind of like keep an eye out for Mary and Jesus when he was out and about. So again, this is kind of like what we do as men for our family members, for our significant others, for our friends. It's our job to be the ones keeping an eye out, the soldiers on the path, the soldiers on watch. We have to remain vigilant for anything that can be going sideways. We can't be lazy when we're out and about, because when things go down, it's up to us as men to get in the path of evil. It's a hard thing to do, which is why we always have to maintain our discipline and our strength in order for when things do go sideways, we're there to take action. So anyway, that last note was from Blessed Jean Joseph Lataste. So anyway, that wraps up our day 4 of the consecration of St. Joseph. Hope this was helpful for you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.